All right, there we go. So, hey everyone, happy Friday. I'll officially roll the intro in a little bit, but just saying hi. Um, yeah, it's been a while since we've seen all these sunshiny faces for the general public. Although we all had a good time at Consensus. Nice Valkyrie shirt, Rodrigo. I noticed that. Speaking of
I didn't even realize I had a Valkyrie shirt though I got for free in an event.
yeah, it works out pretty well. But also, if anyone knows any good Dash swag shops, let me know. I got this not too long ago from Crypt, and their site has been offline for a few months now. So like, I think they're gone. Um, so at some point, maybe we. I know Kanuker had a swag store at one point. I don't know. At some point, maybe we'll get some other ones going and make sure everyone's outfitted. Maybe at some point next year we can have some really cool, sexy Dash Evolution design, and then have like a dozen people at Consensus or whatever, all in like matching shirts or something. Come out in force, rolling deep, make it look like we have money we don't, all that stuff. Um, but yeah, um, Agni says using some sort of solfege frequency for intro music. No, it's so my intro music. I don't exactly remember where it came from, but it's some like rates-free background sound. I think it's called stargazing, and I just kind of used it. It's like very like chill. Um, I wonder where the Maya protocol when they do their Mondays with Maya. Mondays with Maja, and then they have some little background music that goes. It's kind of also very calming and hypnotic. Um, but yeah. Anyway, um, it's probably a good time to actually. So, are you gonna say something, Rodrigo?
Yeah, send me the link of the YouTube channel, please, on Telegram Heroes
So you
whenever
can
you
share it.
can.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
share it.
thank you.
So right now we're live on YouTube, on Odyssey, and on X, and I'll share all three links. So you can pump it up, pump up the numbers. Um, and as I've said before, it seems like the YouTube. I think I get a lot of you know, a lot of the Dash community seems to do a lot of YouTube stuff for these ones, but always I've gotten um, the most reach on X. Just seems like rather than people just being um, hanging around on rather than people just hanging around on YouTube just waiting for a stream to come in. They seem to be yeah, just they're already scrolling on X, and then it's just like a lot easier for people to come across that, so that's not that bad. All right, you're good to go. Oh, hit that like button, by the way. Anyone who's 5 watching, 3 likes, we're getting close there. All right, let me officially hit this intro and get this thing going. All right, guys, ready? 3, 2, 1, go. So, hey everyone, officially now this time. Welcome to the Dash Podcast, episode 215. Means we started this way back in the day went under the Dash Force project, I think in 2017. And it was a weekly thing, and then I switched to my channel. I started doing every other week, and then just basically every month now. But still, 215 of these over the years. That's like, I don't know, it's like 7 years I've been kind of doing this specific thing, sort of. So that's a long time. Um, and welcome to our dearest of friends, Rodrigo. How's it going, man?
Very good. Good to see you. Last couple of weeks ago at the Consensus event.
Mm-hmm.
Brian as well. It's good to be here.
Yeah, and hi Brian, how's it going? I also saw you there, and then also earlier today.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Thanks for having me. It's funny how close we actually are in proximity, Joel, as opposed, and we only get managed to see each other at a conference halfway across the country.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll fix that at some point. We'll have to get some in-person meetups going. Um,
Yeah,
just again a million different things to do with our time, and we're also very busy. It would be funny if you were like just literally worked in the next room over, and I still never saw you because you're just too busy just working.
pretty much.
Yeah, yeah. So we, um, I kind of talked to as a kind of a background. I kind of talked to, kind of got an email from one of the CoinDesk fellows, an organizer, basically saying, "Hey, do you want to guys, checking up again? If you guys want to sponsor Consensus this year, whatever?" And I answered pretty quickly, said like, well, "It's very likely not in the cards for this year, but I still want to chat with you anyway." Thankfully, I did talk with him because he comped a free ticket, which is they're not cheap, and so I decided, okay, well at least I'll come, and then we got a discount code for a couple others to come, and then um, also we got a shout from the Ampera Foundation, AMP, and they had a booth there, and they were seeking co-sponsors to the booth. So all in all, everything just kind of came together for us to, we really didn't think Consensus was in the cards this year, but it all worked out quite well. It was I joined, and then Brian, and then Paul DeLucia, or Paul from research as I like to call him, although he develops a lot. Paul from R&D. And then so it was like the four of us, more or less like officially from the Dash team, and then from different aspects of the Dash ecosystem, and then of course plenty of Dash supporting partners were there and things like that. So it was a good time. We're going to kind of quickly recap all this stuff and then talk about what we learned. And as always, feel free to ask questions in the comments and things, and we'll be sure to answer those. All right, let me first off start with the food sponsorship message from CoinATM Radar, because they are so kind as to sponsor this podcast, which, by the way, even though it's the Dash podcast, no Dash Treasury money goes towards this. This is just my own project on the side. So I do this. Anyway, CoinATM Radar, this podcast is sponsored by CoinATM Radar. Proudly so, in fact. When buying crypto with cash, an ATM is much more reliable and safer than meeting some random person in a random place. And unlike an exchange, which could freeze your account, you truly own all the crypto you buy. With CoinATM Radar, you can find crypto ATMs and other services where you can buy or sell cryptocurrencies, definitely like Dash, for cash. On their website, you can search by coin, address, if the ATM supports selling as well as buying, and you can also search by geo area, which is country, state, city, etc. You can also check and compare actual current fees at different ATMs. To find out more, go to coinatmradar.com or coinatmradar.com. All right, so first, I'm just going to throw up a couple of the funny things we have on deck here, which are the recap post on X, which has the picture of all of us together, all the four of us. Maybe Paul will jump in later, but in front of the Ampera booth. And one thing that was funny, as sort of an affiliated project with the AMP Foundation, or affiliated project, I guess, is this meme coin called Stash, and they parodied it by giving us all mustaches to match Paul's mustache. And then there's a funny one where they put up one of Rodrigo with hair, but he had
That mustache looks pretty good from the hair not so much. The mustache I think I can pull it off with the mustache like that.
And then they gave you the Karen hair instead, which was pretty funny. And they said it says brand now renamed to Karen Digital. So,
that was pretty funny. There was the other one with the mustache that kind of There was a
put the
different one
mustache
too.
here and then the one up on the hair. So yeah, there's a lot of fun there. So Before I get into just my endless rambles about everything and anything, what are you guys' initial impressions of the conference? And I have to say, this was my first consensus. It does not seem like it was either you guys' first consensus. So I don't know who wants to go first, but how was it this time, and how did it compare to other times?
I guess I can start out. I mean, yeah, I've been, I think, 2 times. I don't remember offhand, to be honest. 2 or 3. It's been a while. I mean, I'd say it was pretty similar to past ones. I think there's always regulatory themes, to some degree. This one seemed to have a little bit more of some political themes, I think, which I think is just in time with what's going on there, during that time frame. But that's probably the biggest thing I'd say was different. Maybe a few less flashy booths than in the past. I think there's been some other more flashy kind of booths, but there were a couple good ones there. AMP being one of them. But that's probably the only things that I noticed different.
Yeah, I will say for the political thing is very interesting, because in the past, obviously, crypto's been a very fringe movement, and sometimes at odds with the powers that be, depending on how you approach it. But this time, first off, RFK, who's I would say the number 3 presidential candidate in the U.S. right now, came and spoke, and there's obviously, I would say, all sides have been sort of pandering to the crypto vote a little bit. I mean, definitely, Trump has been going full steam into that. But even as far as I'm aware, the Biden campaign, I believe now, accepts crypto donations as well, even though that administration has been a definite antagonist of all of this. So it's kind of, that being the major difference, is kind of like a quiet but very important difference in that it's like, it's not just crypto for crypto people anymore. It's kind of like our time has come broadly in terms of everything. Like now this matters to the world. So, yeah.
It changed a lot. Consensus. I think I went to either 6 or 7 events. I think 3 in New York and 3 in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I think it used to be the maximalist events, and then Consensus start opening up for other blockchain projects, and then the maxes move out to another event. This year, 2024, comparing to last year's, was about 50% smaller. And 2023 comparing to 2022 was already 50% smaller from 2022. 2 years ago it was a huge. I mean, but again, it was right after the pandemic. Everybody was eager to get out of the house. There was a crypto event. Both Consensus and Bitcoin 2021 were huge events. Definitely, there's a move towards regulation, and there was people on stage talking, on one of the few stages, talking about how can we improve KYC. So that's something, that's the new type of conferences. It's government oriented. I think probably Consensus got a slap on the wrist from the SEC, because I bumped into someone from 2017 who had a booth there, who last minute had to reprint the booth because he was doing basically an ICO, and the event does not allow to do that anymore. And meanwhile, I think Consensus, did the EOS ICO at one point in, I think, 2018. It was the EOS ICO at Consensus.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting, like for someone like me that, did 20 events per year for like 5-6 years in a row, to see how events are changing drastically now. And there's a lot of segregation on events. There's events just about NFT now, events just about blockchain games, Consensus and events kind of about regulations, presidential candidacy, because of course it's election year in the US. But there's events now just for payments on the blockchain. So the industry, grew tremendously in several areas, and Consensus today is just another event.
Yeah, I guess I would kind of I would agree with that. That we did have we did definitely have like the era of the cheap pump is definitely over, right? As far as in previous conferences, there was a lot more people pitching a new token, a new project, and trying to get people in whether it was obvious or not. It was definitely people trying to get investors, getting or you know bag holders, whatever you want to call them, right? But getting people to come in and buy into their token and the project, and obvious or not, and it seemed to be much more industry based this time, right? Where it seemed to be much more about players in the industry trying to make big business happen, trying to make exchanges, regulations, all that kind of stuff. It seems to be moving a little bit more in that direction.
Yeah, I think it was the 2017 or the 2018 consensus where Craigie, what do you call, what's his name? Mr. Satoshi Nakamoto, but not Satoshi.
Yeah,
Craig Wright.
Craig Wright.
Yeah, Craig Wright made the announcement on consensus that he was Satoshi Nakamoto.
Interesting.
This was back in 2018. I think it was in New York. So it was. I think that year was $8,000 or $9,000 to get in because it was just the hype. It was 2017, 18. The event grew a lot, but it changed. It adapted. 5-6 years later, it's just it's a good event. It's good to go networking. A lot of VCs. You have several meeting rooms. Fidelity was there, with the entire meeting room, the conference centers. Like, not because you don't see sometimes a booth down the floor, but if you go to the second floor, there's several meeting rooms that some companies just hire or sponsor, and then that's where actually they do the business. And so there's big, huge BitGo was there as well with a big conference room just to do business, while you have those little projects or booth or everybody trying to fish something new.
Yeah, for sure. Brian, did you notice very much of a growing up kind of a thing in that way, of not quite as wild and pumpy, but a little bit more institutional this time?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going in the earlier years, 17, 18. I think I started in 20 going, but yeah, I mean, I think this is where the time is that probably the larger projects or the the well-funded ones probably are going to start flexing their muscles a lot more. Bigger booths are going to probably start coming, just like I said, flexing their muscles. I mean, getting people to their booths, learning about the projects. I mean, these things change so fast, right? I mean, people are developing, and you got to get the word out somehow. And conferences are a good way to do that. But just telling everybody what's new, what they're able to do now. That's, to me, that's what I'm seeing. Anyways, less of, like you said, the token advertising and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely noticed some interesting changes on that. So first of all, it seems like obviously a bunch of companies, a bunch of things like that. A lot of the projects, like the official blockchain projects that were there represented, seem to be a lot of like token platforms, or talking about the things that they facilitate, as far as not just use our token in our ecosystem, but build things on top of what we do. And so, like, for example, whether it's the Multiverse X, whether it's the Tron folks with their Bitcoin L2 kind of shtick or whatever, it seems like a lot of that was, it's not so much, look at the cool blockchain project we have that does this. It's like, look at the chain, we're kind of like a service provider for people to build on top of. And that's kind of a big thing. One thing I also noticed is the way the Bitcoin market cap versus relevance thing is very interesting and I think this is one of the more interesting times of crypto, where Bitcoin, BTC specifically, just wasn't very well represented at consensus. I saw very few allusions to Bitcoin at all. Like there was Tron showing the Bitcoin scaling roadmap, whatever that they got, and then a few places were like, oh, this with Bitcoin, or then there was Stacks, which is their Bitcoin L2, but even then, that's not like, it's more of just like a separate crypto, kind of. And there's all that kind of stuff. There just was very little explicit lip service to Bitcoin there at all. There was a lot of explicit lip service to stablecoins though, which is very interesting. And if you look at the market caps, obviously Bitcoin is still, as far as I know right now, over half of the valuation of the crypto space that we know of. But the stablecoin sector has been growing faster than Bitcoin. If obviously stablecoin value, it only goes down with $1, at best. But as far as the actual market cap, it seems like there's this weird disconnect where Bitcoin used to be everything, and then it was most things, and now it seems to be in some ways largely irrelevant in these modern business conversations, but at the same time it's still valued more than most other things, and institutions are getting involved. So I'm kind of wondering if this is kind of an early sign of the .com bubble era of crypto sort of being over and in the space growing up, where it's not about what which coin has more valuation to it. It's more about what business use cases you can build on top of it. And we're sort of at this spot where the Nvidias of the world, of the crypto world, don't necessarily have that valuation yet, but people are working on that. Whereas the, say Bitcoin and all the meme coins and stuff or as a purely, investment case or speculative investment case or whatever, are still kind of hanging on. Have any thoughts on that or disagreements or anything?
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Just a quick word. Yeah, I mean, it maybe goes a little bit on your earlier comments too. What I found a little bit different in the growing up mentality, I think, is the mentality of collaboration. Like in past years, when I'd visit a booth or I'd learn about a project or whatever, it was, we do this the best. We are the best at this. This time around, it was nice to see more of a collaborative type attitude, i.e., we excel at this, but we're always looking for ways to work with other projects. Like, I think people are realizing that you cannot build everything. You cannot have every single feature. And so it's, whether it's cross-chain or some other kind of integration, I kind of felt like people were a lot more open to that kind of collaboration, cross-chain and whatnot.
Yeah, it's interesting because I say that too, Brian, when I say to some project that approach us, I'm like, great, this sounds fantastic, but inside your head, to actually make that work, you gotta need like $500 million in 10 years. I think people are getting more of a reality check of what can be done and the time it takes to build things. 10 actually works inside their head and how fast things work in their own minds. But definitely consensus is more of a institutional event focused on regulators and governments now. And Bitcoin now 2024, I think it's going to happen in Tennessee in a couple of weeks, is the one that you go to see everything related to Bitcoin only. I don't even think they allowed, like if I'm a pet Bitcoin representative and I want to have a booth there, I don't think they allow or something like this,
Or it's got a lot of egg splatter on it or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is funny. Which days are so? Is that Bitcoin conference hosted by Bitcoin Magazine, or is that a different one?
Yeah, that's the one hosted by Bitcoin Magazine. It's a Bitcoin 2024. They got to do in Tennessee, I think July 2020 something. And consensus, they announced they're not gonna do in Texas next year. They gotta do in Canada.
Yeah,
which is becoming a circus now. If you notice, like those conferences are becoming a circus now. They're popping to every city, every state. Instead of making everybody fly to the same location all the time.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be one in Singapore next year as well. No, it's not just one consensus. Apparently, consensus is split. Just not inconvenient for their name and branding, but whatever.
Yeah, right.
Which consensus? I'm the real consensus. So, I mean, it is the same organization, but it's kind of interesting how in the early days everything was a Bitcoin conference, and then all the alt sector or whatever would show up to the Bitcoin conference. It was kind of under that. Then eventually, over time, the Bitcoin conferences became more exclusive, and then things like consensus were just general. And then for a while, there's conferences like Ethereum conferences became everyone's there kind of for Ethereum, but then a bunch of other projects too. And now those are starting to sort of, spread out. It's funny because as far as I know, the Bitcoin Magazine run maxi conferences are under a lot of fire from the hardcore of the maxis for, dabbling into ordinals and some other things like that are, even though they're on Bitcoin, they're just not pure enough. And so there's a lot of people boycotting those conferences, or I don't know, a lot of loud people talking about
they're
it.
not approved by the core team. If the core team on Bitcoin does not allow you to build on it, it's not for everybody. It's just whoever is part of their club.
Yeah, which is pretty funny how that whole thing has shaken out. Also, I mean, I just think as far as consensus finding its voice, I do think that its consensus is really, the crypto space is diversified so much, and just this year, all the different conferences I've been to, and then there's there's Monero conferences too that have that much more kind of cypherpunk mentality. Then there's a Bitcoin Cash only conference, which I was invited to, and they wanted to fly me out for that one, but I was looking at the list of partners and everything, and it just did not look like I could justify that as a work trip, because there's no company that could conceivably work with Dash there. It was all very specific, and I was like, oh well, now you got that going. It's I think that a few years ago, maybe I don't know if it was last year or whatever, which one specifically, but the biggest consensus is probably the biggest it'll ever be, just because now the same, even though the space is so much bigger still, it's just so spread out now that now it's like, oh, I missed when consensus was so big. It's crypto is just so big that now it's not all at consensus anymore.
Yeah, and the same goes for projects. And as I tell people on my channel in Portuguese when I do our lives, I eat blockchain for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the past almost 10 years. And I still don't know what's happening in the industry, because there's so much happening all the time. People are like, oh, have you seen this project? Have you seen this blockchain? Have you seen this DeFi pool liquidity synthetic token? I'm like, with a meme coin, I'm like, no, I can't follow all that. It's insane. And that's just the beginning. I think CoinGecko mentioned about 2.5 million token and blockchain projects in the past 2 years. You can add another 5 to 10 million projects in the next 5 years. So it's happening.
Yeah. Oh, another thing. It's funny you mentioned tokens. That's another big thing as far as the major blockchains represented at consensus. I think that there was a very relatively low number, 10 or something. Dash was one of the very few L1s, as they call it, or independent chains, whereas now everything's a token on some other chain. Everyone in the 2017 shitcoin boom, everyone had their own chain. Not anymore.
But majority of the people still don't understand the difference. What is a token? What is a coin? And I tell them the best way to understand is a coin has a blockchain. A token doesn't. So and also now there's the separation of, this is a EVM token. This is a EVM blockchain, and those are non-EVM. So Dash is a non-EVM. We don't speak EVM language yet. Like IOTA and other. So there's also the industry pivot to Solidity, Rust, EVM, everything based on this type of language, and so other technologies like for example, IOTA used to use Tango. They shut off their blockchain for I think 6 months and nobody noticed, and then they now run on Rust
Yeah.
because it's the same as you just speak one language. You're a blockchain that you don't talk to any other blockchain, and if you don't talk to any other blockchain, you're becoming isolated. And if there's no company built on top of you, you have to rely on the community to build and make the tokens expand. So now we have the EVMs and the no EVMs. That's something interesting as well to consider.
Yeah, I definitely noticed a lot of that where whatever it is, I mean, and unfortunately, Solana complicates things by being not EVM, but also being very important in the space today. Even though who knows if they're going to last, whatever, that's a different conversation. But like as of like right now, just when we were like, okay, the EVM standard is coming together, now Solana has to break that whole thing up, and we'll see where that goes. But it is kind of interesting to see. I've actually had people they're saying like, hey, I haven't heard of that token when talking about Dash, and I'm like, not a token. And I've had people ask about what's Dash's contract address, and on Telegram when they ask it, it's almost always a Binance Smart Chain contract address. But in a conference, it's actually an Ethereum contract address. But it's still like, no, that doesn't have any of those. That's not what it is.
Yeah. So there are some YouTubers that I bump into in Brazil that have 100,000 followers. They have a channel bigger than mine. All they do, they talk about DeFi. And I was talking to one of the guys one day. He's like, "Oh no, never heard about Dash." So there's a whole circle of content creators that are just talking about blockchain games. There's another chunk of content creators, they only talk about DeFi. And they're not aware of other projects because it's growing tremendously that it's out of control.
Yeah,
I did see
absolutely.
a lot of law firms there. Actually, just I don't know what just randomly came up, but I mean they've always had a presence in past conferences, but I kind of felt like there was a bigger presence this time for obvious reasons. But yeah,
Yeah, because people before you didn't really need lawyers because no one cared anyway, and then now we're right at the point where it's like we're transitioning from the government's after you just because you're in crypto, but you have no idea what to do about it, to now you're starting to have an idea what to do about it, and so that's where the lawyers come in. So just slip right in there, and that's fine. So oh, another thing. So I've noticed this at all the conferences I've been to this year across, Amsterdam, Dubai, freaking where did I go in the US? I don't know. But anywhere talking about Dash, I get like a 50-50, I think, response. The Dubai, Web3 Dubai was much more like a much smaller minority of people knew what Dash was. But typically when I talk about Dash, and as long as I mention, crypto used to be called Darkcoin back in the day or whatever. Oh yeah, yeah. Like half of people, the other half are just like too new. Like they came in 2021. Anyone who came in 2017 knows Dash because it was like up there and stuff. It was one of those things that a lot of people are talking about. 2021, it's just like they came in right for like it's either the Bitcoin Maxi or the ETH EVM boom. And as far as I know, first off, everyone who I don't know anyone who hasn't had a positive reaction to Dash generally. So people who remembered it were like, "Oh yeah, that awesome, great seeing you guys here. This is great." Like excited. So some people, most people who remembered it were excited. People who didn't hear about it were like either oh okay, like oh interesting, oh that's cool, interesting, or like whoa this is actually cool. Like I didn't hear like more positive. So generally speaking, now I do think that we've sort of turned the corner on that whole like Instamine FUD kind of thing as long as you stay out of Monero conferences, right? Where it's like, oh, I thought that was a sketchy project, but like no one, that's gone. Anyone who remembers Dash just thinks of positive things for the most part. And if you hear about it from scratch, you know, it is like, oh yeah, this sounds awesome. On the other side, the dark side of things from that is, first off, a lot of people are like, I didn't know you guys were still around. I didn't hear anything since like around 2017. And it's like, well, yeah, there's that. There's been WenEvo forever. And at some point we have to do a better job of making noise, and that's kind of something we had to figure out this year. Yeah, you want to say something on that?
Yeah, no, definitely. Brian, sorry, did I cut you off, Brian? Or okay, yeah, I think one of the things is that for the Dash community to realize. I mean, Brazil, Venezuela, Colombia, all those communities faded away because once the investors, the token holders, don't see any yield on that token they're holding, and plus there's the bull market, there's the bull market, there's the bear market, and then there's the delays. It got forgotten. It's a top 200 project now. And I think unless there is, the ability to run smart contracts, doesn't matter if you have a treasury and if you have money coming in from mining operations, if the blockchain doesn't speak the blockchain multi-languages or the EVM, what the industry is adapting or choosing, maybe I would say, if your blockchain doesn't talk to those other blockchains and you need a bridge, you add too many barriers for the usability. If you cannot run smart contracts, build stable coins, NFT, there's not much to talk about. Only when those futures are up and running on the Dash blockchain, I think, and then we'll have the structure to start rebuilding communities using treasury funds to say, hey, let's do a proposal to hire developers to build an NFT platform, or to do a meme collection, or to do a payment integration, because now you can build a USDT Dash, or you can build a USDC Dash. You can run a stable coin on top of the Dash blockchain. I think unless we have any of those functions working, there's nothing much to promote out there.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually going to say something very similar to that in agreement. Brian, do you have anything to add on that subject?
Well, I mean, I will say this is the first conference that I've gone to where I've had much less focus on the payments chain than I have on the platform chain. And that was intentional. I always introduce ourselves as, a well-known top payment coin, but it was the first time that I really got into some good discussions with folks on platform features and how their features may compare or compete. But yeah, I mean, again, collaboration is, I think, 100% of the game here. That's really what's going to be needed.
Yeah. I have seen people say almost like when the new people are learning, like old people who already know what Dash is, it's a different story. But new people who are learning are just like, oh, that's great. Oh, yeah. And then it's after, oh, that's cool. Then it's tokens and smart contracts in that order. And I think that this is one of those listen, this is one of those credit where credit's due kind of conversations. One of the earliest people who's saying that Dash absolutely needs a stablecoin on it was George Donnelly. And I don't think he's said a lot of stuff that I don't agree with, done a lot of stuff, got it chased out of a lot of communities since then and before then as well. Not saying any of that's not the case anymore, but it is true that I do think that Dash needs a stablecoin like stat, like really soon. And I really hope now that fungible tokens or non-fungible tokens are added to platform relatively recently, fungible tokens really need to be there. And some coins I think will need programmatic abilities like USDC and things like that. I think might need it in order to maintain their blacklists of, sanctioned addresses or whatever. But the point is we definitely need something like that soon. I think that'll be a huge boon. Did you want to say something on that, Rodrigo?
Yeah. If we, for example, today, after 5-6 years, we can see that the industry is doing payments on using stablecoin. Tron, that we used to make a lot of fun because it sucks. It's running stable coins for a while, and there's a lot of USDT Tron activity, billions of dollars on top of the chain, accumulating what we call TVL, total value lock on top of each chain. So I find it very difficult to believe that industry will adopt a payment blockchain that is excellent. It runs extremely fast, but it goes 20% down in one day or 20% up on the other day. So unless there is the stable coin that can copy those functionality of instant send, maybe a new purpose or a new focus needs to be think on the whole blockchain for the whole Dash ecosystem. So are we gonna be more focused on storing data because now master nodes have an external hard drive to run dApps? That's what I think Filecoin does that as well, running dApps or storing data for other dApps from other blockchains that are EVM compatible. How hard it will be to build things like this? So we need, once we have everything up and running, then we'll see who's gonna find the usability for the blockchain. Because hey, look, we can process transactions on this blockchain here, instant confirmation, and cost just a few fractions of a cent. So there's lots to there's several ways that we can go regarding the Dash entire ecosystem now.
Yeah, I'll add a little to that. I mean, from the regulatory perspective as well, I mean, Dash platform from a data storage perspective is a great option, right? Because now with recent regulations that came out with very specific guidelines on what they consider decentralized, right? I mean, being able to, not every chain can offer that the way that we can. So I think that's a huge value proposition that we'll bring to the data scene overall for blockchain.
So that's something that we'll find out. If we see there's a big a search or a lot of companies looking for data storage, to run their dApps, and Dash is the solution. Well, maybe we should present proposals to the Treasury to, look for those companies and say, hey, look, we can store all your information and run dApps faster than anybody else on a 10-year-old blockchain that is, has other features. And let's see what the industry will buy and sell regarding what we can offer.
Yeah. I'm probably going to oversimplify this, but I mean, the way that I've been looking at trying to establish new partners and whatnot, particularly for platform, there's the collaboration piece, which I already mentioned plenty of times, and that's other projects, cross-chain data, whatever it might be, other projects that are out there that we can collaborate with, right? And then there's what I'd call like service providers, where you're talking maybe data consultants or development shops, things like that, where educating them on what Dash can bring to their clients, which essentially is just an avenue into the third section, which is I guess industry, right? The actual companies or people that want to build on a blockchain or think they want to build on a blockchain. I think some people think they do and they might not know why, but in any case,
all the cool kids are doing it.
Yeah, it's all the different verticals, right? And that's probably one of the more complicated ones to figure out, because the Dash platform is going to add a lot of value to the data space, and most any solution or product needs data, right? But it's what verticals are going to be the most willing and wanting of the features that Dash has. That's going to be the hardest one, because there's so many different use cases. So
yeah, I have to say also about evolution in general, which a lot of the, I guess, stagnation in the Dash world could be attributed to from 2017 to now. A lot of major releases. I mean, there's been a lot of releases, like for example, chain locks, and then LMQ based instant send by default on everything, and some block reward reallocations, a bunch of other cool stuff. But a lot of major releases have been sort of or major features, I guess, have been packaged into this whole evolution thing, which has taken a while. And because of that, some people have accurately, some community members have accurately seen that there's been this like missed opportunity because of that, and as such have said, well, maybe we should just abandon this whole Evo thing and just start building up core, like put all our focus on core, making the main chain work and stuff. And I have to say, That is absolutely out of the question. I mean, obviously not like now that we've come so far and built so much and it's like about to be released, yes. But also I'm starting to kind of see, based on like the way other projects are also sort of struggling in ways that Dash is not struggling in the, or is struggling now but won't be struggling in the future. So first of all, like the sound money system that Bitcoin was set out to be, sound money and payments, those two use cases, Bitcoin kind of, I mean, it's arguable depending on how you want to call the speculative valuation kind of things. Arguably did one and not the other. But for any other project to do that, it just, especially something like Dash, like how do you get that, how do you get enough volume to stabilize the value enough that it's attractive? It's like that chicken and the egg problem is just like so difficult, like in the modern world. And the payments use case also just to supplant traditional payment methods or supplant, you know, stuff like custodial Bitcoin wallets even, or things like that, is just also such a giant uphill battle without some overwhelmingly new and better features. Some of which, like the only ones I think have any kind of a chance in that way are, and even then it's a minimal chance, are like the hardcore privacy focused things like a Zcash or Monero or whatever, where people will, because of that strong feature, they will deal with some of these annoyances. But if you don't have that, there's just no way people are going to just be like, oh, fast, easy Dash. This is great. I'm just going to use this for my money. Only weirdos like me are going to do that. But like, honestly, what you need is, first of all, like the stablecoin thing. Obviously, you need, you know, a decentralized Venmo type deal with easy username, contact list, all that kind of stuff. So it's just easy and intuitive to use, and you don't have to wait for the token to do well to make it useful for transactions. All that to give enough usage, i.e. gas fees / demand or whatever, for the base token to stabilize that asset before that then can become valuable for people to use independently of these other training wheels. But like, it seems like the things we need to do with money and how it needs to work and payments in the modern age is so much advanced past where you're going to need, you're going to just be able to be like, let me take layer one, as it were, you know, or UTXO chain Dash and just send and receive it for goods and services, and that's it. That's a really hard sell on its own. And in order to get to the point where it's not a hard sell, you have to do all these interim steps like stable coins, for example, or even like a Bitcoin denominated, like a wrapped Bitcoin or something on there, where you're like, oh, look, you like to stabilize your value, but you don't like the way the USD goes down all the time. Like, here you go. Why don't you use your Bitcoin, but it actually works, and just deal with a couple of trust trade-offs or whatever. And so all this stuff that we need to flourish, to really not just be like, oh, this is a fun niche project with a few people, but to actually succeed and like long term not die out. All of that is like evolution. And so a lot of people, when they, you know, some people say, oh, complain about building this data platform. Who decided on that? That's a dumb idea, blah, blah, blah. We should have just done payments. And you understand a lot of the stuff that's wrapped up in that is required to make the entire monetary network that is Dash function long term, in my personal opinion.
I think the biggest advantage of the Dash entire ecosystem today is the treasury. I don't know, technically, once we got to be able to say, okay, it's up and it's running. We don't need to focus so much money from the treasury to development. So there'll be money for marketing. There'll be, and then, okay, so now that we know what it can be done technically, are we going to take money from the treasury to say, hey, let's build teams to tell everybody how to build on top of Dash? But what can be built until we have this answer, what can be built, you know, we don't know what we can promote. But I see that the treasury, once there's not too much pressure on funds for development, once this eases, I'm assuming once the platform is up and running, this will ease, and there'll be, you know, funds for other areas to take and broadcast, hey, look, it's done, it's working, and we can build this. Now, let's either go headhunting, go after companies, say, hey, do you want to build on this blockchain here. Look what we can do. Or communities, other community members would just organically learn that they can ask for funds and build whatever they can build. But we need to know what we can build technically, and this can only be done once it's ready.
Yeah. Someone was actually commenting in the comments. He says if Dash could become decentralized and private Dropbox, that would be a great use case. And so stuff like that, although Dropbox seems to be a little bit larger storage, like larger files, whereas platform right now as for, and this is something I really have to drill down hard with the devs, especially as we start looking at an actual release and not just saying, oh, soon, maybe one of these weeks. When you're like, oh, shit, it's like this is when it is, then jump on these guys. But it seems like indexed queryable storage versus non-indexed large file storage is kind of what it is, and there's a lot of interesting components that I'm sure could help out with that. But another thing I think is very interesting, it is if you have like the money use case is really it takes a lot. Like I think there's a massive amount of money involved in money, right? Payments, apps, payments processors, all that kind of the payments industry. There's a ton of money on the table there, but it's all at scale. It's just massive scale, and so you can't just like process payments for like a dozen customers as an individual small business owner and have an income. Like no, that's just not the way. Like a dozen individuals, it just does not work that way. You need scale, and so. Especially when you have, who's going to use Dash if like the token does whatever, and I'm going to use this as my money. No one. And even Dash with a stablecoin, if the stablecoin is not interoperable, like if they can't go to all their major places you'd want to send it, like Coinbase doesn't support the Dash stablecoin or whatever, or USDC on Dash, it's like, nah, then who's going to use a stablecoin? No one. And so you have a lot of network effect type things. However, if you're just building a intelligent, easy data storage type use case, you could just get one big client and they're happy to use it. You only have one client, one big company that's using Dash and using platform, and it works. And then then that's easy to get another one. You don't have to have the first customer. It's just like you go to a coffee shop, and if there's only one or two customers per day, as long as the coffee's good, they're still happy. But it's like you don't need that network effect to get started. So I think that this could kind of take some pressure off of people like us to like, we have to get a lot of more people. Let's pump up those transaction numbers. Let's get this going. Let's call up a bunch of other, message everyone on Telegram. Hey, can we integrate Dash into your payment provider? And like merchant map data, all that stress, all that stuff might not necessarily apply to, hey, let's get a few big clients that are using this data solution, and then we kind of build from there.
Yeah, I know we're maybe close to time, but I saw a comment about Filecoin. Yeah, that's a perfect use case collaboration. Again, we did talk with them at the conference. One of the potential angles there is, in fact, that just the way that they store data is different from us. They are able to handle, some of the large data sets for reasonably priced storage costs. So a collaboration there is perfect, right? Because we can have all the features of Dash, and then connected with them for any builders that need heavy storage. So that's a perfect example of the type of things that we're trying to pursue.
Yeah. And it is some on that sort of. So another good thing about that is we get to the collaboration thing. One thing I've noticed is it's so hard to go chatting out there on the internet about use our coin, but then if you combine it with like something else, like we co-promote with Spritz Finance, you can pay all your bills, then those people like it, and then you co-promote with the Maya protocol, they love it, and they're all the different coins they support, they're all part of a big happy family, and so. Filecoin has gotten quite a lot of, I guess, hype and industry, buy-in, I guess. It would be really cool to collaborate on a dual Dash Filecoin type solution somewhere, where a single killer app or whatever used both in tandem for the different storage purposes. That Filecoin, again, is those big, the cheap storage for very large kind of files, whereas Dash would do the index storage for for smaller data that you need to query very, very quickly. And so then just those two pieces of this two storage use cases sandwiched together, the company or end user, whatever, ends up interacting with both blockchains, and then we can go co-promote with Filecoin anywhere there's like a Filecoin this or that, or they're promoting this product or service. We show up too, and then talk about our part of that and kind of work together on that. So I mean, I think that would be great, kind of like we're doing with the Maya protocol, which, by the way, in August, I believe we're going to be going to, I have to finalize some details, but going to Rare Evo in Las Vegas. If anyone wants to come, the Maya protocol is going to have a booth, and we're probably going to co-sponsor with them and just be one of those, similar to what we did with the Ampera Foundation at Consensus, and just be there for that. And so I'll mention AMP in a second, but anyone else want to chime in on that, go for it.
No, it's all you, man. It's all you now.
Yeah. So, and this is something, and let me scroll up, see who
even and just you mentioned about Zcash and Monero. Even Pivx, which was a fork of Dash, right? That maintained the whole privacy ideology, to the core. How are they doing? Do you guys have any information? Just came to my mind. I haven't heard much about Pivx lately, but it was a Dashy fork that was gonna be focused on privacy as well.
Yeah. I don't know. I am relatively familiar with Pivx. I know they start out as a fork of Dash. Basically, one could think of it as a smaller, like a 1/10 the market cap, whatever, fork of Dash that has full proof of stake instead of the sort of hybrid that Dash has, and has ZK privacy instead of CoinJoin. And I believe it's Sapling. Zcash is Sapling privacy. They took one of the, I guess not the latest, but like one of the older versions of Zcash privacy, and kind of using that.
Because, for example, my question would be: is it a reality for Dash to go back and be a private coin, or there's no more market on this new type of blockchains that are coming every day? Should Dash go back and pursue this line?
That's a giant rabbit hole, and I think I'll start down a little bit. Brian, do you want to? Anytime you want to jump off, you just can. We'll probably keep going for a little bit longer to finish this out, but just give me a heads up if you need to leave.
I do actually need to leave in a few minutes, but I'll be here still a few minutes.
Okay, so let's just power through this quick thing. I definitely think privacy is becoming much more. We're kind of hitting at the point where it's like peak risk for privacy, as far as like governments delisting stuff like that, to the other side of that, where now there's a massive amount of demand for it. I know PayPal's USD coin on Solana, for example, advertises confidential transactions as a feature they're going to put in, which hides transaction amounts, even if you could still see where they're going to. So yes, there's a lot of discussion. There's a channel specifically for this discussion in the Dash Discord. So if you go there, check that out. I wrote up some other thoughts on that, including like what are the potential things that Dash could change, if anything, what are the risks, what are the benefits that I wrote that up on the plane a few weeks ago. I need to put that in there. So yes, there's a big discussion on that. As far as Idris Bengali said, Flex integration, when? So as far as I'm aware, whenever it's feasible, there would be no problem from a technical perspective implementing it in the Dash wallet, and Dash did get awarded, even though not received yet, an integration grant for the Flex SDK. There's a regulatory hurdle to this, unfortunately. Dash needs to sort that out in New York. And I got a lot of really good conversations going, and I need to follow them up with them this coming week to get that going. But basically, if we can solve those issues, that seems to be a big blockage. I've also heard that there's a possibility that Flexa might be, and I obviously can't get into, this is just a rumor and I don't know details, but that they could be finding a DEX workaround to their regulatory kind of issue. So what specifically that means, I don't know, but maybe basically Dash not being licensed in New York has been a problem. And I heard a rumor that it might not even be a problem. I might not need to solve this problem for the Flexa integration because they might change the way they do things. But currently, it's kind of on my mind that we have to get licensed in New York, which once we get an avenue for a conversation going, then we have to hire a lawyer and do a bunch of stuff and pay buckets of money.
For example,
but I'm focused on that.
Yeah. For example, another thing. Can we organize to sell the entire blockchain? I don't know. Let's go to Toyota. Toyota. You want to buy a blockchain? We have Dash. Look, everything's up and running. We can do storage. We can do this. You guys want to buy the whole thing? Is it possible to do that? Like a big corporation come and use it fully? Can we organize this with the master nodes? There's a few possibilities. There's a lot of companies looking for blockchain. I think, there's what do you call? I think it's Kujira.
Mm-hmm.
It's a blockchain where they don't allow you to build. If you want to build on that blockchain, you got to go to the core team and say, hey, we want to build this. Do you guys approve or not? If they say, hey, you know what? We don't want you guys to build anything on top of our blockchain. Thanks for offering. See you later. It's a private blockchain. How can we do this? Is it cool? Yeah, there's always an utility. It depends who has money to buy the whole thing and use it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of a sort of final thought on that whole idea is Dash has put a lot of hard work in being decentralized and open source and permissionless and anyone can use, and just the whole Bitcoin ethos. That's a hallmark of those 10-year-old plus coins, is like trying to at least pay lip service to that, if not do it fully. We do at the same time now have to find ways of running parts of it, at least like a company, in that we need to make sure we get investors, make sure partnerships with companies, make sure we're integrating into products and services. And the beauty of a decentralized system is anyone can then take charge of that and do that. It's not just that it becomes permissioned like Kujira contracts, for example. So yeah, we definitely need to start, rather than just waiting around and seeing who's going to come and build on this stuff, we need to start finding those people and finding, stuff to build on it, and even figure out use cases and saying okay, well, this would be a great system for to build a merchant map, for example, on, and then find every single app out there that has a merchant map or whatever and just run to them and say, look, you need to do it on our blockchain.
Yeah, as we discussed, Joel, at the event, I'll be looking into see possibilities of potential partners for Dash in Brazil and maybe in Latin America. Maybe I'll present a proposal to develop this business developing idea of seeing what kind of partners will be interested in using Dash and what for. Maybe someone will say, hey, we can use this for that. And there's $1 billion idea that we can't see yet. But we'll make this into a next podcast conversation for sure, but I have to go.
Yeah, for sure. Might you take it off too, Brian?
Yeah, I'm going to have to take off as well. But yeah, Rodrigo, I fully support that effort. That's exactly into that third category I mentioned is, industry and finding those that, have the need and desire to build on it. So
yeah, I'm sure some companies say, I don't want for that, but I can do this. And, there's $1 billion idea there that they will use it to the bone, but we don't know yet because, we have to go out there and say, hey, look, that's what we have. It works this way. You want to do something? What do you want to do? How can you build on top of this,
Yep, and even more so. And I've mentioned this in other spaces, but it really helps. That's what's going to develop our roadmap, right? Dash Core Group is always going to be an innovator. We're always going to come up with things that are going to make us, unique and valuable through innovation. But the reality is too, people are going to have requirements that we don't support yet, and understanding who wants to build and who's going to benefit from building on Dash, even if we don't support every requirement they have. Well, let's figure out what those requirements are so we can, get it into our roadmap.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so just the last thing, Rodrigo, you said you were going to put in a proposal, not this cycle, but next cycle, right?
Yeah, I think next month I put on my calendar. I think this cycle is already up and running, so I'll have to do a couple of research.
Yeah,
We got to chat a few times more to see what kind of partners we can
of course.
bring and collaborate and ask and say, hey, that's what we have. What can you build?
Yeah,
And this just
absolutely.
takes hours, from a week, So I'll calculate with a team, maybe 2 hours a day, 4 hours a day for 2 months, and we'll do a little search and engage with a few potential partners.
Yeah. It's so also I currently have a proposal in for an evolution marketing war chest site type thing. It's only for 200 dash a month, which isn't that much for right now, but basically to sort of build up something to run some ad campaigns, do some PR pushes or whatever when we have a launch. And if you want to vote for that, you can. Also, if there's some months where it doesn't fit in, I put it for 6 months. So if there's like a month where we'd rather fund something else, feel free to defund it that month and then fund it in the next month, whenever there is. Or just be like, you know what, you're not giving you any more money, you bastard. We're going to give it to someone else. That's fine too, obviously. So yeah, let's wrap this thing up.
You're not advertising your proposal very well, Joel.
Yeah, maybe Sam and I have something in common with that we like to well, it's not very good. I mean,
Too honest.
too honest. But yes.
All right, guys.
Oh,
I'll catch
yes.
you later. Okay. Thanks for the
All right, bye-bye,
discussion.
Ryan.
Have a good.
Yeah. I gotta go to Joel. Thanks for the invite, man. Be here any other time.
Absolutely. Cheers. Thanks for joining.
Have a good one, guys. Thank you.
All right, peace. All right, so to conclude, Evolution Marketing War Chest proposal. It's out there. We'll see how it goes. We're going to wrap this one up, but now it's time for the after party, which is, if you haven't been in there, it's like this, but it's private. It's not broadcast like this is right now, and invite only. So if you want to get into that, go into the Dash Discord or the Dash Telegram channel, which is _chat, I believe, and then just start asking around for it, and then I'll see it or someone else will see it, and then we'll get you in there. I'll probably be in there in like an hour maybe, or half an hour from now or something like that. Anyway, that's only for people watching live. If you're not watching live, disregard. There will be another after party. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please hit the like button and subscribe. All that good stuff. And I'll see you guys next time. Have a good weekend. And